The last thing that we're going to do in this workbook is add a macro. And actually, when you add macros, you need to save your workbooks in a specific way. So actually, I am going to first save my workbook as a regular Excel file because I haven't done that yet, which is not really a good idea. So don't do that. And then as we get ready to make it a macro-enabled workbook, we will go ahead and we can just save it right now as a macro-enabled workbook. And we simply come down here for the file type and choose macro-enabled workbook. It's nice to save them as both. Sometimes macro-enabled workbooks get a little wonky or quirky, so it's nice to have your original. And I'm going to choose Save. If you don't save it as a macro-enabled and you create a macro, your macro will not work. So you have to save it as a macro-enabled workbook. And you can use macros for all kinds of things, tasks that are you do repetitive. Maybe you put a stamp on all your worksheets, or you can even set up a worksheet and include formulas and functions, and the macros will remember to do that. People use macros when they're constantly having to import data into a certain spreadsheet and they know they want to get rid of maybe column X, Y, and Z and have totals in a certain place. So we're just going to create a simple macro to leave a stamp on our workbook. And we will go to the Developer tab, and we can click on Macro Security and make sure that it's enabled. And we are going to use the relative references, which meaning that when we run our macro will run from the cell that we are in, as opposed to using absolute cell reference, meaning that no matter where you run your macro, if you created it, for example, here in M8, and wherever you moved from here, when you run your macro, it will start exactly from M8 and go wherever you went. So for this macro, we want it to run in the cell that we click in. So we're going to use relative reference. And we're going to start in M7 actually. And we'll choose record macro. We'll give our macro a name. Again, these need to be one word with no spaces. Be careful when you choose your shortcut key that you're not choosing maybe the letter S. We use that commonly, Control S for saving or Control O for opening. So try to use a key that you do not use as a shortcut key. And you can hold your Shift key down and make it an uppercase letter if you want. But they're just asking us to type the letter M in here. Sometimes you want to add a description in case you forget why you created the macro, and then we click OK. We don't have to rush or anything. It's not timing us. It's just going to record our moves. So we're just going to type in this cell. And I'm going to click on my check mark, head over to the home ribbon and wrap the text and stop recording. Go back to my developer and stop recording. And then we will go to our enhanced Fujita scale worksheet. and click in cell E3 and run our macro. I'm going to choose Control M. You can also click on the macros and run your macro right from here. This is also a place where if you want to delete your macro to try it again or edit your macro, I'll click run here. There we go.